Today we're chatting with David about the Manaslu Circuit, one of our toughest and most rewarding treks in Nepal. So David, let's start with the big question. Why this trek and what makes it stand out?
Well, it's an amazing trek. I would say what makes this one stand out in particular is just once you see Manaslu for the first time, how much uninterrupted viewing you get of it. Multiple days of just crystal clear views of Manaslu. What I think as well is really interesting about this trip is the various different influences throughout the trip. So that's also the changing of the scenery, but also the further you get through it, the more you have a really strong Tibetan influence that begins to creep in, which I thought was really culturally interesting on this one, and it differentiates it a bit. While not necessarily unique just to the Manaslu Circuit, I think the combination of the two, the scenery and the Tibetan influence, the further north that you go, makes it a really unique trip in our Nepal roster.
Nice, wonderful. And then I noticed that this trek is a grade 8, so it is technically a challenging trek.
Yeah.
What would you say is it about it that makes it so tough? Because am I right in saying it's not actually technically that difficult?
Technically, no, that's correct. So it is very much a trek. You shouldn't need too much specialist equipment. You do have, so one of the things that makes it a grade 8 is the major pass crossing of the La Kila, which you will need poles and microspikes for. That's about as technical as it gets. But I think the things that make it a grade 8 are the fact that you are trekking at altitude for a decent amount of it, and altitude takes a bit more toll on the body than below altitude would, if that makes sense. And also you do have long days at the start of the trek. So a few days you'll be trekking for 6-7 hours, and you might be out for 9 hours as well. So it's a combination of endurance, fitness, then you get to altitude, you have a technical pass crossing, and also just the length of it as well. It's multiple back-to-back days. So it is definitely what we'd classify as one of our challenging treks for all of the above.
Do you remember off the top of your head how many days you were out there for and how much altitude you did end up climbing?
You climb, I believe it's just over an Everest in terms of cumulative ascent once you've tacked in the acclimatization days. The total distance, I'd have to go back and have a look, but I think it's around 100 miles that I have recorded. So it's long.
It's a good amount,
And that's divided into longer days at the start and then slightly shorter days once you get up to altitude.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it is varied. Expect a few long days at the start, and then the distance will drop off. Then you'll cross over the pass, and then you'll get back to distance again at the end.
So with this trek being a little bit more challenging in that regard, what would you recommend for people to do to prepare for this?
Good question. So there's no prior requisite of trekking at altitude, because that's very difficult to do, particularly if you're UK based. What I would say is get some really, really good long days walking under your belt. So I wouldn't recommend this to anyone who's a novice to trekking or walking in general. We would expect you to have sort of be a regular trekker or to have done a decent amount in the build up to this. That could be long walks in the UK, in mountainous areas, get yourself out to do some hills. Try and string a few days back to back as well, because that's what you'll be required to do on the Manaslu Trek as well. If you're someone that's done a grade 6 or a grade 7 with K as well, and you're not sure, just come in and ask us or send us an email, give us a call. It may be that you're in a good place to take that step up to an 8. So anyone who's looking for Manaslu as a bit more of a challenge on your existing experience, just have a chat with us and we'll be able to assess.
And you'll be the expert now after being
Exactly, hopefully.
Nice. So, what was a typical day like on this trek?
Overwhelmingly, we'd be up for breakfast at 7, we'd be off by 8, and we'd always be in by sundown, so by 5 o'clock, often before that. There were plenty of stops on the routes. The guides are fantastic at stopping the group at viewpoints, cafes, certain villages, certain points along the trek as well, just to let everyone catch up, have a breather, have a drink, have a look and see what's around you, because sometimes you can just get your head down a little bit and not always appreciate the scenery, and the scenery is amazing throughout. There'd be, on the longer days, there'd be a lunch stop en route, or on the shorter days, if you get into the accommodation in time for lunch, you'd have lunch there. And then there's generally some downtime in the evening as well for people to chill out, play cards, catch up on the day. So you've got a long time to do the walks. You don't necessarily need all day, but that's one of the things that's so good about this trek, is that you're out there.
Yeah.
Don't worry about anything else. Just do the walking, enjoy it, take it all in, and odds are you'll have some time in the evening just to chill out as well.
kind of covered this a little bit, but with like the daily rhythm, there was plenty of like stops, and you said there's cafes, so there's cafes along the way, and was there a chance to like restock or anything?
Exactly right. Yeah, a typical day would involve going through multiple villages along the way. So we generally had a cafe stop kind of mid-morning after a few hours under our belt. Then we'd, as I say, on the longer days we'd have a lunch stop as well. And then there'd generally be snack stops. So you do break it up. Another thing is that you can it's a big enough trail that you can stop by the trail side as well. So we did plenty of that.
Nice.
So yeah, don't worry, your day walk is broken up.
Yeah, it's not continuous.
Not continuous 7 hours.
Yeah.
No, don't
You have
worry.
plenty of breaks. And then I noticed when we had a conversation earlier, you said you spent a lot of time on the later bit of the trek with views of Manaslu for like days on end. What was it like seeing it for the first time?
Seeing Manaslu first time, brilliant. Because the guide had sort of kept us in suspense for the first few days, so we'd all been waiting. And then when it appears, it's fantastic. I think we saw it from a viewpoint, and then it disappears again, and then it reappears. And it's such an imposing, majestically shaped mountain that does stand out around the other peaks. And then from there, you get amazing views of it for days on end. But yeah, that first sighting was really impressive.
Yeah, really special.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then how do the landscapes change as you gain that altitude, I suppose, and as you go through the trek?
Yeah, so it starts off very broadly. It starts off sort of quite gorge-like. You're following the river as it goes through a series of rapids. So you're hemmed in on both sides by cliffs, crossing over a lot of suspension bridges, and it's really quite lush and quite warm down at the bottom. You then move into what I think I would call an alpine zone, a bit more sort of tree-lined, forested, still very pretty, a little bit cooler as well.
Yeah.
After that, from about 3,000 onwards, you'll emerge into a much more sort of open, slightly barren landscape, fields, and the tree line is still there, but sort of dies off. It gets a little bit less green. It's more sort of juniper trees and that sort of stuff. And then at the top, just before you cross over the pass, it's sort of very harsh, snow-lined, rocky, bouldery landscapes surrounded by mountains all around. So the change of the scenery was one of the things that just made this trip stand out. You're not in the same type of scenery for more than a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, and it's great because you've always got a change in scenery.
Yeah.
And you go back into the trees at the end down the other side, so you get sort of a welcome return to what
it's
you
not
saw
like
at the
you want to
beginning.
be ungrateful, but I suppose it might be quite exciting to have that change, so it's not the same day after day. You are getting that variation.
Exactly. I think if I had to summarise it, the scenery is amazing throughout, but it's different shades of amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there you go.
You're kind of getting it all in, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
And then you said that when you come back down, you go back into that almost like alpine view, so I imagine you have to say goodbye to Manaslu at one point. What was it like knowing that, okay, you've had like however many days of seeing it, and then this is like the goodbye moment?
Yeah, it's on the way back a little bit more emotional than I thought. I think it's fair to say, because it disappears from view on the penultimate day of the trip, so you get one more view of it through the trees, and then you drop back down on the trail. So and that's very much that. I mean, the thing is, the scenery still stays amazing. You're still trekking in the mountains, even though you're dropping altitude. But the thing that you've come to see, that's the last view of it. So that's always going to be a little bit sad. But
you do get a lot of time with
we've
it,
been
which
spoiled
is great,
by that point, very much so.
And then when I heard about your trip, I didn't realise that you don't just arrive and then go. Did you have a bit of time? Was it in Kathmandu?
That's exactly right. Yep. So you fly into Kathmandu, and depending on what time you arrive, you've got a free day on day one, which is just pretty much to get over the journey. And then on this particular itinerary, not all of our Nepal trips are like this, but you do have a day at the start. So we had a really interesting cultural tour with a local expert through Kathmandu, which was really interesting. A little bit of an introduction to Buddhism, Hinduism, and then some of the main sites in Kathmandu, and then free time in the evening, which everyone loves, so you can go out and explore. And actually the people that had been to Kathmandu before immediately dived off to wherever they wanted to go, and the rest of us just had a nice time exploring. So it's really good, and it's a good way of just settling into Nepal before then beginning on the trip proper.
So I think, am I right in saying that Manaslu is seen as like a cultural or spiritual mountain to the people? So is it quite nice to have that start of the holiday or the adventure, I suppose, to understand what it is you're about to go and see and understand the religion a bit more.
It is, because the Manaslu region has this really strong Buddhist influence as well. So to understand a little bit about Buddhism, which we got on our first full day in Kathmandu, was really, really good to then set up the rest of the trek, so that when we were passing all of these Buddhist monuments, you do kind of know a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, our guides are very well versed in this as well, so they can explain a lot about Buddhism. But to have that kind of crash course, let's call it, in Kathmandu and going to see some of the main shrines, I thought added a lot to the trek. Yeah, I thought it set us up very nicely. Because
am I right in saying that at the start there's more Hindu influences, then as you went further along it became more Buddhist and Tibetan, and then
exactly.
You got that full journey of it.
At the top point of the Manaslu Circuit, you are a day's trek or less than a day's trek away from the Tibetan border, so it does go really close to Tibet. So one of the things, I think we've touched on it earlier as well, but the change is very noticeable, and I think a really, really interesting thing about the Manaslu Circuit is that change in influence from Gurung further down the valley to Buddhist Tibetan in the northernmost villages, and then back to Gurung at the end. Yeah.
Nice. And then talking about the villages, you do pass through because there was no camping on this, was there? You were staying in different accommodations. In the villages. Was there any villages or lodges in particular that stuck out with you as a favourite one?
I really liked Samagaon, which is probably the biggest village that you'll go through or stay at least on the trip. I thought that was really colourful, really. It had this sort of vibrant energy to it, and also the accommodation we stayed in was excellent. And then in terms of scenic, I would pick out two villages. The village of Low, which is the first one that you stay at altitude, where you've got Manaslu and Nike Peak behind you in the distance, sort of peeking out. And then down the other side, the village of Bimthang, which was great because you get to that after you've done the past day, and it's just in this sort of amphitheatre with these amazing snowy mountains ahead. So those would probably be my favourites. But the villages are a real highlight of the trip in general. Yeah,
nice. That amphitheatre sounds amazing. It must be amazing to go to sleep and then wake up to that as
It was incredible because it was quite foggy when we got in, so we didn't actually see it. And then the next day, bright blue skies. Completely so cool. Clear, and we went, oh wow, this is what's behind it. It's incredible. And that's after 6 days of incredible mountain views. It still had the power to just take your breath away and go, this is incredible. You don't take it for granted. It doesn't get old. Not at all.
And then I suppose a lot of people I know that if I was going to book onto this trip, I'd be wondering, what is the accommodation going to be like? Could you talk us a little bit through the different kind of places you were staying in and how that worked, and was it comfortable, and did you feel like you got a good rest?
I certainly thought so. It's a lodge trek, and you often will hear them referred to as tea houses in that sort of area of Nepal. The accommodation that I stayed in was very comfortable, very well equipped. It isn't hotel accommodation, but considering you're in a fairly remote trek in the north of Nepal, it's about as good as it can be. There's no camping at all. And most of the lodges that we stayed in had, as I say, very good facilities. They always had a really nice dining hall area where you could just have your lunch, have your dinner, but also just sit, rest, chat to your fellow travellers in your group. And a lot of them had amazing mountain views as well. So you'd wake up and there'd be a 6,000 metre peak just outside of your window with the sun shining on it. One of my favourite moments was actually, again, in Samagaon, where the lodge that we stayed at had sort of a rooftop terrace, and we were all up. Everyone in the group was up for sunrise on Manaslu at 6:30. It's magical.
That sounds amazing.
Incredible. So accommodation really, really good.
Yeah.
I think for the Manaslu Circuit, I'd recommend it. No point did it feel particularly uncomfortable or stuffy, or never did I feel like I wasn't getting enough rest because of the accommodation. So 10 out of 10 for me.
And then in a similar boat, what was the food like? How did you find eating at altitude? What were you eating? Was there enough food?
Yeah, so altitude, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to fare at altitude because it was my first time. So I went very much with the eat less, drink more plan, which for me worked, but other people went with the drink more, eat more plan.
Yeah.
So everyone's very different, but I would say with eating at altitude, just listen to just listen to your body, see how it's going. Make sure that you are fueled for the day's walks, particularly the day that we went over the pass. I think eating a lot is important if you possibly can. Drink loads and loads to help your body with the acclimatization process. And then the food itself is, I think, is nothing particularly fancy, but it was good, tasty food that was cooked up by the guides and got us through all the day's walks. So and there was some opportunity to try local Nepalese dishes like dal bhat or Tibetan soup or something like that. So it was varied. I found it very tasty. I'll pretty much eat anything. But
especially after that many days of walking as well.
Exactly. You get very unfussy. But the food was good.
Nice.
I enjoyed it, and it kept us well fueled for the trip, which is the main thing.
And how did you find the altitude? I didn't realise this was your first time at altitude. Were you a bit nervous before you went, and then how did it go to your expectations, I suppose? Yeah,
I was nervous. I'll be completely honest about that. I had no idea I was going to perform, and it's one of those where you can be relatively fit and still be affected by it. So there's no guarantee from the start. What I would say is that our guides were brilliant and checked in with everyone, which is just one of the benefits of having a good group of people there in the team to sort of oversee that. They took a lot of care with everyone in the group to make sure that they were accustomed to or getting used to the altitude correctly. I did a lot better than I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to be quite headachy and not feeling great, and actually felt fine. A little bit ropey on the day of the pass, but survived.
This trek is a big one, and it is a big commitment. What do you actually get included in the trip when you book onto it?
A lot. So you get... I mean, the main one is that you get accommodation all the way around the circuit, and you get an expert team of guides and porters and luggage transfers and all of that. And I think you can't necessarily put a price at the beginning on how seamless the trip goes.
Yeah.
But that's what you get for it. That's what you get for your money. I mean, we really didn't have to worry about much on the trip at all. It's all taken care of. So that's all included. Your permit fees are included. All of your meals are included. So you don't have to queue up at the accommodation to try and pay for your dinner afterwards, which is great. And also things that seem... the little things that actually do make a big difference as well. So you get picked up and dropped off at Kathmandu airport on arrival. You get a free tour of Kathmandu with permits paid for. You get accommodation at Kathmandu at a hotel. It really is an all-included package, which I think for a trek like that is definitely the way to go. I wouldn't want to be paying for things or having to pay for things or allocate separate expenses along the trip. So the only things that you need to pay for is if you want extra drinks in the lodges, tips for the guides obviously, but that's obviously money well spent, and anything that you want to buy as a souvenir. And that really is it.
So then everything's just taken care of then.
Exactly.
Even you can just enjoy it.
Even our end dinner in Kathmandu was covered, so yeah.
That's good. So, time for the final question. If someone asked you, is Manaslu our best trek in Nepal, what would you say?
Well, let me say that I haven't done all of our trips in Nepal, but you will struggle to beat it. I think it's got a little bit of everything. It would be a brilliant first trip in Nepal, as it was for me. It would be a fantastic second trip in Nepal. If you've not done it before, go and do it. It's unbelievable. Yeah,
it sounds amazing. I'm very jealous. Well, thank you for sharing your experience with us. And if you have any questions, you can just leave them with us and we'll get back to you, or you can find out all the details at kadventure.com.